What up, YouTube? Timu's here. Since she has pretty much two films that just premiered, the Disney Plus film Black Beauty and the Saoirse Ronan film Ammonite, I decided to go ahead and do my top 10 favorite Kate Winslet movies. Because she's been acting since like the 90s. You know, she's been in some really iconic films over the years. Who just does not love Kate Winslet? I mean, she is British, but she can pull off an American accent really well, by the way. I mean, Kate Winslet is just always awesome. So, with that being said, here's my 10 favorite Kate Winslet movies. Alright, coming in at number 10, I'm going to go with the Ang Lee film Sense and Sensibility. Now, this stars Emma Thompson, who portrays the character named Eleanor Dashwood, whose father ends up dying and her family's finances are crippling. But, after the Dashwoods ends up moving to a college in Devonshire, with Eleanor's sister Moran, portrayed by Kate Winslet, is torn between this handsome guy named John Willoughby, portrayed by Greg Weiss, and the older Colonel Brandon, portrayed by the late great Alan Rickman. And Eleanor's romantic also hopes with Edward Ferrars, portrayed by Hugh Grant, and they are very hindered due to his prior engagement. This film, Sense and Sensibility is pretty decent. Of course, there's been lots of adaptations of, Sense and Sensibilities. This is, of course, Emma Thompson actually did a screenwrite. I wrote the script for this film as well, so there's that. Of course, Sense and Sensibility is based on a classic novel by Jane Austen. There's been other adaptations of Sense and Sensibility that's been pretty decent, but the Ang Lee one is pretty good. The late great Alan Rickman is great. The chemistry between Emma Thompson and Kate Winslet is pretty good. The costume is pretty decent. Kate Winslet is pretty good when it comes to these period piece films, and she does such a great job in this film. If you guys have not really seen Sense and Sensibility, give that one a shot. Alright. Number 9, I'm going to go with the film Little Children. Now, Little Children, of course, got released back in 2006, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And, of course, it stars the likes of Kate Winslet and Jennifer Connelly was also in this. Also featuring the likes of Patrick Wilson, Jackie Earle Haley, directed by Todd Fields, and in it stars Kate Winslet, who portrays this educated woman named Sarah, who cannot really come to terms with her life as a housewife and a mother, while of course you got Brad portrayed by Patrick Wilson. Why did I have Brad Pitt in my head? I don't know. Who is also the staying-at-home dad and is married to this beautiful filmmaker played by Jennifer Connelly. And he ends up going skateboarding instead of studying for the bar exam. So they end up meeting at a playground and begin to have pretty much a secret affair while their children is nap and their spouse are at work. So this is pretty much an affair film where Kate Winslet has an affair with Patrick Wilson's character. Anyway, this film, of course, scored a couple of Oscar nominations, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, Kate Winslet got her Oscar nomination. It scored loads of Critic Choice nomination. It's a pretty decent flick. Very, very risque at times. Todd Fields, pretty decent director. He did a pretty good job at directing this. Jackie Earle Haley, probably one of his best performances he's done. Yeah, if you guys have not really seen Little Children, definitely give that one a shot. I think you enjoy it. Alright, coming in at number 8, I'm going to go with the 2008 film The Reader. Now, this is, of course, the film that actually won Kate Winslet her first ever Oscar. And it's about this teenager named Michael Berg, portrayed by David Cross, who is this teen in this post-war Germany who begins a passionate affair with this older woman named Hannah Smith, portrayed by Kate Winslet. And Kate Winslet, of course, Kate Winslet usually always has a habit of taking it off in her films, and yes, this is one of the films where she does take it off. Anyway, Kate Winslet is still really solid in this. You also had Ralph Fiennes was in this, Bruno Ganz, Lena Olin. The scenes chemistries between David Cross and Kate Winslet was pretty good. This film also gets very risque at times. It did score loads of Oscar nominations, and like I said, it also had a one for Kate Winslet. Yeah, The Reader. If you guys have not really seen The Reader, yeah, it's a pretty decent film. I mean, Hannah also ends up being on trial for Nazi war crimes too, so there's like a trial that ends up happening as well. So yeah, this movie is very intense. It's very risque. Definitely go check out The Reader if you guys have never seen that one. Alright, number 7, I'm going to go with another risque Kate Winslet movie, and that is Iris. Now, this, of course, stars, two of the most acclaimed actresses, Judi Dench and Kate Winslet, who bring to the screen one of the most extraordinary women of her generation, which is celebrated after Iris Murdoch, and it takes place from her, days as a brilliant scholar at Oxford, where she drilled the world around her libertine spirit to her career as a philosopher and novelist. And so this, of course, is a film about, you had a Kate Winslet playing the younger version of Iris with Judi Dench playing the older version. You had Jim Broadbent, Hugh Bonneville was in this, Penelope Wilton. It was also pretty risque at times. Kate Winslet looked pretty good in this, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, I do like good, true story-based films, and this is definitely a really decent film I think you could sink your teeth into. It's, of course, directed by Richard Eyre, who did a pretty good job at directing. Jim Broadbent, Hugh Bonneville, Juliet Aubrey, Samuel West was great in this, Penelope Wilton, some really solid cast list. It shows on, who Iris was, and I thought both Winslet and Dench did a pretty good job at bringing Iris' story to life. I mean, if you guys have not really seen it, it's a really decent flick. Alright, number 6, I'm going to go with the film Holy Smoke. Now, this was pretty much one of Kate Winslet's most earliest films. And this film, of course, got released back in 1999, if I'm not mistaken. And it's probably one of Winslet's hottest roles, in my opinion. It was, of course, directed by Jane Campion, who's directed some other pretty good stuff, like A Bright Star, The Piano, In the Cut. She has a really interesting resume. She has a new movie coming out to Netflix next year with Benedict Cumberbatch and Elizabeth Moss. That sounds pretty interesting. And it's where this young, beautiful woman named Ruth Barron is on a journey of discovery in exotic India, but she ends up following the influence of a cosmetic, rich religious guru, and her parents then ends up hiring PJ Waters, portrayed by Harvey Keitel, who is this machi cult programmer who ends up confronting Ruth in a remote desert hideaway and all. But, PJ ends up quickly learns that, he has met his match. And there are some really, hot moments that happens in this. I mean, Kate Winslet was really solid in this flick. You also had some other, besides Kate Winslet and Harvey Keitel, you also had Pam Grier, Sophie Lee. You had some really good cast lists. But, the scenes between Harvey Keitel and Kate Winslet gets very risque at times. Kate Winslet, once again, she showed how great of an American accent she could be. Her performance in this was really solid. If you guys have not really seen Holy Smokes, it's another good Winslet movie worth checking out. Alright, coming in at number 5 is actually her first feature, if I'm not mistaken. And that is the Peter Jackson film Heavenly Creatures. Now, this is about this teenager named Juliet, portrayed by Kate Winslet, who ends up transferring from England to Christchurch, New Zealand, with her family, and forms a bond with this quiet, brooding Pauline, portrayed by Melanie Lazinski. and through their share love of like of big screen tenor, they also get a little risque in this film too. But their parents begin to suspect that their increasingly intense friendship is becoming unhealthy, and so the girls decide to run away to America, and they end up hatching a plan for those who are trying to keep them apart. They are pretty messed up girls. I guess you could say this is like a female version of Bonnie and Clyde, just without the if Clyde was a girl instead of a boy. Heavenly Creatures. I mean, it's a pretty risque film. I mean, this is, of course, a Peter Jackson film, by the way. I mean, of course, Peter Jackson would go on to give us the Lord of the Rings franchise, King Kong. I mean, Peter Jackson had an interesting career before he did Lord of the Rings, by the way. And Heavenly Creatures definitely was one of them. Their parents in this was pretty solid. They do some, like, crazy stuff throughout the whole film. This movie... I mean, of course, the chemistry between Melanie Lynskey and Kate Winslet is really solid to watch. I mean, if you guys have not really seen Heavenly Creatures, give it a shot. I mean, this was definitely Kate Winslet. I believe it was her first feature, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there. I gotta double check that. But, if you guys have not really seen Heavenly Creatures yet, definitely give that one a shot. Alright, coming in at number 4, I'm gonna go with Revolutionary Road. Now, this, of course, was a film that was directed by Sam Mendes, who, of course, was married to Kate Winslet at the time. But after Kate Winslet won her Oscar, that's when they divorced, which I'm not going to tell you details, but there is always, some sort of controversy about actresses winning, then getting divorced after. I mean, not going to tell you details, but anyway. Revolutionary Road was, of course, a reunion between Leo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, who, of course, started another feature that I'm going to talk about way earlier on. But, of course, here, DiCaprio was once again the king of the world and on. And, okay, I'm not going to... Anyway, here you got Leo DiCaprio, who plays a character named Frank, with Kate Winslet as a character named April Wheeler, who are, of course, married, but they always see themselves as far removed from the confidentiality of suburbia. And it's pretty much a film about, marriage and all. I guess you could say it had a bit of a Marriage Story feel, so before Marriage Story became what that was. And the couple, of course, plans on an escape that may push them to their limits here. You also had some really good castles in this, like, you had the likes of Micah Shan was in this, you had Kathy Bates, you also had David Harbour was in this film, Katherine Hahn, Zoe Kazan, Justin Hafe, Dylan Baker was in this, Ty Simpkins, Ryan Simpkins, Richard Edson. It's a really good cast list, but, man, the performances by Leo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet shows that they have not lost their touch after all those years, on the ship and on. And they were both really, terrific in this movie. I mean, the film did not really get well received, though. It has a 67%, which isn't bad, but sadly, there are some folks who was not a fan of it. But I still thought it was a really decent film. I mean, it is very relatable for those who are married, and I mean, if you guys have not really seen Revolutionary Road, I remember when this thing got released, it was really cool to see DiCaprio and Winslet, once together again and on. And they did not disappoint at all, in my opinion. Alright, number 3, I'm going to go with the film Finding Neverland. Now, this film, is, of course, a film about J.M. Barrie, who, of course, is the author of Peter Pan. And he ends up developing a relationship with this widow named Sylvia, portrayed by Kate Winslet, and her 4 sons. By the way, one of the sons is portrayed by Freddie Highmore, who's, of course, on the show with The Good Doctor, so there's that. Anyway, Finding Neverland is terrific. I mean, it's also from the same director who gave us, who, of course, gave us films like Christopher Robin and World War Z, Mark Forster. You also had Dustin Hoffman, Julie Christie, Rhoda Mitchell, Mackenzie Crook was in this, Toby Jones. Ian Hart, Nick Rowell, Kate Mabry. You had some really decent cast lists in this film. I mean, the chemistry between Johnny Depp and Kate Winslet were really solid. The mother and children dynamic chemistry between Kate Winslet and the kids was pretty good. You could really buy them as their mothers perfectly. Of course, the story of Peter Pan, like of the creation of Peter Pan, was always really solid to watch. I mean, if you guys have not really seen Finding Neverland, it's a really good one. Alright. Coming in at number 2, I'm going to go with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Of course, directed by Michel Gondry. Starring Jim Carrey here. Kate Winslet. I mean, it's where this woman named Clementine, portrayed by Kate Winslet, who undergoes this procedure to erase her memories of her former boyfriend Joe, portrayed by Jim Carrey, from her mind. But Joe discovers that Clementine is going to extreme to forget their relationship, and he undergoes the same procedure and slowly begins to forget her. And it's a really crazy flick. But the performances by Jim Carrey, by Kate Winslet was pretty solid. You also had Elijah Wood was in this, Mark Ruffalo, Tom Wilkinson, Kirsten Dunst was in this. The scene, like the chemistry between Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet was pretty decent to watch. The film was also scripted by Charlie Kaufman, who did a really good job at screenwriting this. You even had David Cross, Jane Addams. Really decent romance film. Oh yeah, Alma Pales was also in this too. I forgot she was in this film. But anyway, this was actually Michel Gondry's pretty much directorial debut, and he did one heck of a job with a film like this. It shows that Jim Carrey could do more than just a straight comic. Jim Carrey was hands down terrific in this movie. Kate Winslet was great. I mean, her pretty much having like red hair is not red, orangish hair was pretty cool. She looked really good in this, by the way. But yeah, this is definitely a really solid film. If you guys have not really seen Eternal Sunshine, a very decent movie about trying to get your ex and all that. Pretty messed up, like a messed up storyline, but it's a good one. Alright, my number 1 favorite Kate Winslet movie of all time obviously goes to Titanic. How could I not add Titanic to this list? I mean, come on. Kate Winslet as the character of Rose. Leo DiCaprio as Jack. How can you not have Titanic as your number 1? It's one of the most iconic Kate Winslet. It's really the most iconic movie that Kate Winslet has ever starred in. Of course, her first feature was Heavenly Creatures, but this was the movie that really put Kate Winslet and even Leo DiCaprio on the map. Of course, based on the infamous Titanic thing that happened about like 100 years ago. Of course, directed by James Cameron, starring the likes of Kathy Bates, the late great Bill Paxton, Victor Garber was in this. Of course, you had Gloria Stewart as the older version of Rose, which was pretty good. Titanic, of course, the highest grossing movie of all time. Won the Oscar for Best Picture. Won James Cameron his first ever Oscar. It's such a terrific, outstanding film. She was a little messed up for not laying Jack on that raft. I mean, that raft was big enough. She could have moved down a little, but whatever. The romance scenes is terrific between Kate Winslet and DiCaprio. Titanic is just such one of the most iconic movies of all time. If you get, for some reason, if you've never seen Titanic, which I'm pretty sure almost everyone has seen Titanic, but if you guys never, it's definitely an iconic film, and one of the most iconic songs by Celine Dion. Definitely a terrific one. Alright, that's pretty much it. Let me do a quick rundown. 10, Sense and Sensibility. 9, Little Children. 8, The Reader. 7, Iris. 6, Holy Smoke. 5, Heavenly Creatures. 4, Revolutionary Road. 3, Finding Neverland. 2, Eternal Sunshine. And number 1, Titanic. Now, there's loads of other ones I probably could have added. Let me see. The The Holiday is a pretty good one. The Dressmaker, The Mountain Between Us, which wasn't so good, by the way. Contagion, maybe an awkward movie to watch now. Divergent, Steve Jobs, which she got an Oscar nomination for. Wonder Wheel, that Woody Allen film. Jason Reitman's Labor Day, she was great in. She's supposed to be in Avatar 2, which I can't wait to check that one out. I've been looking forward for Avatar 2 for, since 2009, but, Anyway, A Little Chaos, which was Alan Rickman's directing film. Trip of Nine, which is really good, by the way. Collateral Beauty with Will Smith. Flushed Away. She was in Movie 43. Jude, The Life of David Gale. Hideous Kinky, okay. Romance Cigarettes. Hamlet. The Roman Polanski film, Carnage. She was in that recent movie, The Blackbird, with Susan Sarandon. Kid and King Arthur's Court. She's been in some really great stuff over the years. Cannot wait for the Francis Patch, by the way. I was waiting for that for this year, but anyway, let me leave with you guys. What are some of your favorite Kate Winslet movies? Drop comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for more notifications. This is Timu signing off.